Welcome! This is the 18th in my series of Climate Mythbusters, and the myth I'm going to bust today is the claim that the oceans are not acidifying. Well, let's start as we always do with the misconception involved here. They claim that the oceans have not been turned into acid, but they are alkaline. That our trifling amount of CO2 emissions are not enough to turn the oceans acidic. There is no basis for imagining that we can acidify the oceans to any extent large enough to be measured by even the most sensitive instruments. These are all things said by Lord Monckton. The first part of this argument is merely semantics. Oceanographers are not talking about the acid oceans, they're talking about the acidification of oceans, which is a very different thing. Acidic means having a pH of less than 7. Basic or alkaline means that the oceans would have a pH of greater than 7. Acidification is defined as the process of lowering the pH. The ocean pH is currently 8.1 and falling. In other words, they are acidifying, but they are not yet acidic. I have some good news and bad news. The good news is of the 9 gigatons of carbon that we emit every year, the oceans absorb nearly 25% of it. That changes the pH of the oceans, as you can see from the figure on the right. Since the start of the Industrial Revolution, they've absorbed nearly half of our carbon emissions. And that's the good news from the point of view that otherwise our temperatures would be much hotter than they are today. You can see the rise of carbon dioxide since 1957 with the red curve here. The blue curve indicates the amount of dissolved carbon dioxide in the oceans, and that's been steadily going up. And the green curve is the pH of the oceans, which has been steadily going down. In other words, they are acidifying. Well, that was the good news. Now for the bad news. This is a sample of coral taken before the Industrial Revolution. Now, scientists went back and took another sample of coral from the exact same location about a decade ago, and this is what it looked like. The shells of the coral are much more porous. There's a lot of holes in them, which means the creatures are having more difficulty forming their shells. Now, these creatures are the basis of the food chain for about 70% of all sea life. So if they go away, 70% of the fishes in the sea, which we rely on for food, will disappear. According to some scientists, we are at the start of the 6th mass extinction. 50% of the Great Barrier Reef coral is dead or dying. 70% of the world's population depend on fish for their seafood supply and income. Here you can see the areas where there is an intrinsic extinction risk, noted by the colors here, and the hashed marks show where the climate is changing most rapidly and the situation is likely to get worse quickly. Well, let's draw some conclusions from all of this. Human emitted CO2 is not only raising sea temperatures but also acidifying the oceans. As a result, many sea creatures are being directly or indirectly endangered by the lowering of pH of the oceans. Ocean acidification is a serious problem that could affect the livelihood of over 1.4 billion people. So let's stop making the situation worse. So if you see somebody that's not only denying that carbon dioxide raises global temperatures, and in particular sea temperatures, but also that ocean acidification is not a serious problem, then please post a link to this video and tell them they're full of nonsense. Until next time, goodbye.